O meu lugar é caminho de amanhecer. Lá tem samba até de manhã, uma giga em cada andar. O meu lugar é cercado de luta e suor, esperança no mundo melhor e cerveja pra comemorar. O meu lugar tem seus mitos e seres de luz. É bem perto de Oswaldo Cruz. Cascavel vai viajar. O meu lugar.
Welcome to another edition of Lunch and Learn Aspire Beast Council, where we run live deals, give people a framework on how to analyze deals, and actually start building a real estate investment business. I am Charles Clark. Well, first off, bom dia. I am Charles Anthony, your real estate investment broker, here with another bright idea. So again, welcome to the Aspire Beast Council. The whole point of this is to educate individuals on how to analyze deals so that they can make the most of it, give them some framework. I think part of this is just giving individuals a system on how to analyze deals moving forward. But before we get even into those things, I want to give a big shout out to Next Home My Way, the real estate brokerage where I hold my license and where we partner with Aspire Mastermind Group and Raise the Standard, which is my team under Next Home My Way. So thank you, Angel, Carlos, and Jose for allowing me to use the social media room where I'm able to hold my webinars that I do on Tuesday, this lunch and learn right here, and also my webinar every Wednesday at 7 o'clock, besides the days where we have the Aspire Mastermind Group held in our headquarters here at Next Home My Way in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, across the street from the airport. So you might hear some noise in the background, and if that's the case, it's because of the airport that we're across the street from. Thank you again. Our reason for holding this from them Aspire Mastermind is to give individuals a working set of framework that they can use time and time again on how to analyze a deal so that they can move forward, right? And be able to create a system so that they can analyze a deal the same every time without, changing the rules based off of a certain property, right? The reason why some investors are able to move fast is because they have a system in place. They have funnels. That's what I like to call funnels, is that, our numbers that we have are funnels so that we know how to move forward. So for example, if I say I want to make $250 per door, well, if I look at a duplex, that means that duplex should make at least $500 for me to move forward. All right. So if it makes 300, I can just push it aside and keep moving. Or I can look at it and say, is there anything that I can do that can lift that up to 500? Obviously, if it makes negative 150, I might be like, this is not worth it. Right. But again, the framework allows you to address the asset and be able to come up with a solution to the situation, right? Is it negative 150 because I have a hard money loan, or is it negative 150 because I have a conventional loan? And could we spread it out? And now it brings that up. Is the 150 because the electrical needs to be updated, the water bill? The water bill is so much because it needs updating that system. And if we updated that, we can save $200, right? Having frameworks allows you to create funnels so that you are able to keep moving forward when you're analyzing deals, so that you can eventually write an offer, get that offer accepted, and actually close on a deal so that you can start building that real estate portfolio. A lot of people just don't have a framework, so they don't know what they're analyzing. And a lot of times you need to reverse engineer so that you are able to do that. So the Aspire Beast Council is built out of our Aspire Mastermind group. Again, we have an Aspire school that also builds on this concept and provides other learning and education to assist our investors and our investor community. We're just trying to build something where individuals who are trying to build a real estate portfolio on their own, to let them know that they're not by themselves, and they don't have to be. Right? You are a lot of books, real estate books out there, and I've read my few share. It makes it seem like you're by yourself trying to build this, and I think that's one of the huge misconceptions of investing in real estate, is that you're out here on your own trying to build a real estate investment business, right? And that is far from the case. Me being a real estate broker, I see it firsthand, just because individuals, they're trying to raise funds on their own. They're trying to get the next deal all by themselves when they can go and help, go get help, right? Go get another individual to assist them, right? They can bring the money, I bring the resources, and that deal can happen now where, I found a deal, I have the resources, but I don't have the money. So now that deal goes away, where if I reached out to someone who had the money and I tell them, hey, I'm willing to run this operation, I'm willing to do everything, I just need your funding, that's a deal, right? And that's how a lot of deals are done. But a lot of mom and pop and your investors who are focused on their 9 to 5 don't really want to have time to find the partners and find those other things, because they don't really have the time or feel like it's important to do those things of building a real estate business because they wanted to make it a passive income. Well, it's hard to say this is passive income when you still have to establish the business. You still have to do the necessary legwork to get everything up and running, everything functioning, so that eventually it can pay you while you're doing other things, right? One of the stories I always like to tell people when I knew real estate was the thing for me was when I had my 4-unit. I had a vacation in Mexico, and one night of having fun, I spent around $500. Woke up the next day, one of my tenants paid their rent, and it was $750. So instead of me being down $500, I was up $250. And ever since that moment, I was like, hey, this is it, right? If I set this up right, I can make money while I'm on vacation somewhere if I do this the right way. So, and that was me just having a mindset from the front, from the jump. Once I closed on that deal, is that I'm treating this like a business, and I want this business to run when I'm not here, or even when I'm not in the city, or even when I'm not in the country. And so hopefully this Aspire framework will give you that. And so let's get into it. So the Aspire framework, how serious investors analyze deals. So we're going to take each one of the Aspire letters and create a framework so that you can analyze deals, and you can analyze every deal from this framework, right? Also, you can join our mastermind, Aspire Mastermind group. It's free at first, but then we do charge for you to, after your first meeting, the first meeting you can come to is free. After that, there is a minimum of a $29 charge. We do have different levels. I will go over some of those after we get into this. Also, RTS cohort. And I'm going to be going into, we have an Aspire cohort going. RTS is co-assigned with that. But that is what I do on the Wednesdays when I do my webinars at 7 p.m. And we'll go into that a little bit later as well. Right. So tonight, obviously you're watching right now. I do this every Tuesday at noon just to help individuals get better at analyzing deals. You can also join the Aspire Mastermind group. You can go to school to do that up. Obviously, we do have a live analyzing before this. Right now, I just picked one, but we do have one before this that starts an hour ahead of time. It starts around 11 o'clock, where you can go analyze deals, ask questions beforehand in school. I highly recommend that. We also take, addresses and things of that nature beforehand, and then we'll run them live as well. And then enroll in the cohort. So the RTS will break that down, but there's two things that's coming up. So we have the RTS cohort where the 90-day program was within it, but you get some extra things, weekly coaching, live deal reviews, and all those sweet things and strategy calls. We'll go over that a little bit more later. Big one I want to push right now is our 90-day Aspire 90-day program that we are putting out. We're starting our cohort June 6th. 90 days, one goal, your first or your next deal, right? That's the whole point of this. We're going to teach you the framework, teach you everything that you need to know to get your first deal or get your next deal. All right. Most investors analyze deals wrong. And one of the things I try to explain to people when analyzing deals is that if you don't have a framework, you can't really analyze the deal. So what I try to do is reverse engineering with tenants. And between that, you kind of fall into these categories, right? The guesser, the gut feeler, and the system operator. If you don't reverse engineering, you don't have a framework, you can't say a deal is good or not, right? So you're just looking stuff, you're going to run numbers, and because of that, you're not going to truly understand, right? The 1% rule, that was in a book a long time ago when the market was entirely different. And if you try to use that rule now, you're kind of guessing, right? And that rule is basically, if I get $1,000 in rent, that property is worth $100,000. That doesn't really work anymore. That was a good, funnel back in the day when that was being useful. Now you can still use it, but I think you're more guessing. You're a guesser. You don't really have a system in place, and you're just using this one thing to try to break it down. The gut feeler, right? You had the money, you looked at a deal, and maybe the deal did work out, and you was like, I just felt like it was right. Well, if that's the case, you're just doing off a gut feeling. If you can't explain it to me, if you can't coach me on how you are writing on deals and why you're writing on these deals, then you're just going off feelings, and eventually you're gonna run into a problem. And that's just because if you're trying to run a business, that means you are the sole decider. It's your instincts, it's your feelings that is making this decision. Now it's going to be hard to teach that to someone else, right? If you don't have framework and rules and guidelines to help you function through this, right? And one bad deal can ruin your 3 gut feeling good deals, right? Where we want to get you is to a system operator, right? You want to have a system in place. You want to have things in place so that ideally you can teach other people to help you run this business, right? If you want to get to a certain point where you have so many properties, you have so many units, you can't do these on your own, right? You need to have individuals helping you run the business, because you can't change all the toilets, you can't remove all the drywall, you can't sign all the new leases, you can't do all these things eventually when it comes to a certain point, right? There comes a tipping point where it can't function. It either only functions with you or it can't function without you. And you want to get to a point where the system can function without you, especially if you are trying to build wealth. You are trying to build generational wealth. If you're trying to build generational wealth, you might as well start on the first one, so that when it's time to hand it off to the next generation, it's already a system in place. The guesser and the system operator look at the same deal. The system operator knows what they're looking for. The guesser is hoping it feels right, right? This is how you get caught up in deals and thinking this is a good deal because maybe the neighborhood, right? Or maybe there's something that you think is making this a deal because this feels different, right? And you don't have a repeatable process, right? If you don't have a framework, you don't have a repeatable process. You don't know how you got this was a good deal compared to this other one being a good deal, right? You don't know if there's information missing. You don't know if you got all the information you need to make a decision, right? And if you can't teach this to someone, if you can't show someone how you came to your number, then you're just guessing. And then you're just hoping that this deal works out. And you're hoping that the rehab budget is not too much. You're hoping that all these things work in your favor. And I can just tell you this, every deal, everything doesn't work in your favor, right? Something's going to go wrong, and you need to have cushions built in. You need to have certain, um, you know, triggers where if this happened, then, do this, right? If this is the result, then do this, right? Those are the things where you have a system in place, and like Aspire gives you that, because it breaks things down in these filters of, if I know this information, then this will help me with this information, this will help me with this one, this will help me with this one, and then I have this outcome that now I can present it. And when you have an outcome and you understand how you got to that outcome, you can negotiate better, right? A lot of people who just say, I'm offering 50,000 less because I do that on every deal. Well, that other person is just going to say, you're just lowballing me, when you can actually say, hey, I know you might think this is a low offer, but this is the reason why I'm offering this price, and if that makes sense to you, let's see if we can make something happen, see if we can make a deal happen, because I'm not trying to lowball you. I'm genuinely trying to have a deal that works for me, but also can work for you. And you can't do that without a framework. 6 filters, every deal in order, no exception. So we go from A to E, right? A to E, ASPIRE, right? Each one of those breaks everything down. And again, this is giving someone who's just starting out or someone who's figuring it out, right? You already bought one, but you're stuck and you don't know, that first one you might, maybe it was someone that gave you the deal, right? And it's like, hey, this is a good deal here. This is what I'm asking for, and we can get you in the real estate game, right? And I know a lot of people have gotten into real estate that way, where, another investor was looking for their next deal and someone gave them a chance, so they want to give someone the next chance like someone gave them, so they give them a deal, so like their first deal has actually been handed to them on a silver platter. They didn't really need any structure, they didn't really need any framework, they didn't need anything coaching or telling them why this was a deal, right? So that's what we're offering here. So these are questions you can ask, right? Address, asset, is the location viable? Does this asset class fit the market and the strategy, right? That's huge, right? And in the first part, you kind of want to have what you might think the exit strategy is, right? Hey, I'm looking at this property. I think this is a fix and flip. Well, okay, now we kind of have a framework as we go through it, and we can see if that is going to match as we move through it. Seller situation. People sometimes just want to look at the property and think that it's not about um, the seller, right? It's just about the property. That's incorrect, right? Because the seller motivation, timeline, and flexibility has a huge impact on how this can be a deal, right? Because seller financing can make a deal more viable than if you're just trying to go get a regular loan. Price and purchase. This is where you kind of figure out your maximum allowable offer, right? Just based on what you might be trying to accomplish, right? You're kind of framing it at that point. This is ultimately what you want to get to. Obviously, going through the next ones is going to where you're going to finally get to the right exit strategy from that. But a lot of this information you're kind of putting in together so that you can present it eventually and say, hey, this is what I think I can offer on this, right? And so I is the full scope of work. What do I need to do to this property to get to it where the ARV that I've been researching, and where do I need to get to? What do I need to put in here? Which then rolls into, what does the ARV say, right? What is the revenue? Like, what are the comps? What is the possible cash flow because of the rents I can get? What is the possible cash flow from the sale that I can get on this property? Those things are important, which then leads into the last one, which is your exit strategy. And so with with Aspire, we have 5 exit strategies that we look at for every deal, and then we try to see which one's the best one to move forward. A for address, right? Asset. This filter really lets you put the asset in full scope, right? You're looking at it. Hey, I saw this duplex, right? I feel like this is a perfect BRRRR opportunity, right? That's what that first A kind of tells you. Like, what are we looking at? Where are we? What's the market in that? So you're kind of gathering a lot of the information just based off. Okay, we have this address now. Based off this address, we should know what is the ARV in that area. What is the um, rents in that area? Is that area is up and coming? Is that area transitioning? Is that area has opportunities? Is something getting built over there, right? You want to kind of ask all those things when you get that first address, and then you find out what type of property it is, right? A lot of people skip this because they'll say, hey, I only invest in these areas, and now the property comes up in the area, and now you want to force it because you haven't had a deal, because you just say you have to be in these certain neighborhoods. I'm a big proponent of, I follow the deal. I don't care where the property is. I want to find a deal, because if I buy the deal at the right price and I can get everything that I want to do, I don't care if I'm in Timbuktu or the Taj Mahal. I find the deal. If I'm chasing the deals, I will find a deal. Where if I'm chasing neighborhoods, I'm chasing certain communities, I'm chasing those, I'm gonna miss out on a lot of deals because I'm be on the sidelines waiting for these opportunities. And most of the times when people are like that, like, I'm only gonna invest in a certain area, guess what? You want to invest in the best neighborhoods. Well, guess what? Everyone wants to invest in the best neighborhoods. So the likelihood of you always getting that property or that opportunity is going to be far and few in between, because everyone wants to go there, right? But if you're chasing a deal, you're going to come across deals where other people are going to bypass because they don't want to be in that neighborhood, or they don't want to be in that community, or they think certain type of people are in that stuff. I say you get bad tenants in well-paying neighborhoods, and you get bad tenants in not so well-paying neighborhoods. But if I can get a great deal in the not so good neighborhood, but I know I can find tenants that are going to pay their rent because I have a good property in that not so good neighborhood, that's still a deal, regardless of how I ever feel about the neighborhood. And I'm a big proponent, because of Raise the Standard, I need to have that mentality if I'm going to improve certain neighborhoods. I have to go into certain neighborhoods that maybe other people are not willing to go into to improve those neighborhoods. If everyone will only invest in the neighborhoods that everyone wants to invest in, then you get, redlining by mistake, right? You get redlining because you're just thinking, I'm trying to do what's best for my investment. And I think you miss out on a lot of great opportunities, and you miss on a lot of great opportunities that can improve a community, improve a neighborhood, and improve people's lives. When you skip this one, I think you're just missing on opportunities. You're missing on creating a framework, creating a system, because you're just saying, oh, because of that neighborhood, I got to find out how to make this deal happen. And I just think understanding what you're trying to do is so beneficial from the jump, and just looking at the deal and not necessarily always just fixating on the community or the neighborhood or the property, the community or the neighborhood, and looking more at the deal and how that deal fits into everything else. How does that deal fit into the neighborhood? How does that deal fit into the market? I think those are more important than the other way. Again, seller situation. I think some people don't realize, like, understanding why the seller is selling has a huge impact on the deal you're putting together. If you're just assuming, well, they're putting it on the market, they just want to sell. Well, why they're selling, right? Why they're selling has a huge impact on being able to negotiate. There's certain people that will take less because someone took the time to understand their situation. If you just say, here's my offer and that's it. And I don't care, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That person might take that personal and be like, your offer might be the best, but then someone took the time with them and actually just had a conversation because they just lost someone. And, you took the conversation time to conversate with them and learn about it and say, um, why you're selling and why you're struggling is, well, I grew up here, I moved away. Now, my parent passed away, and now I know I don't really want this, but I wanted this to go somewhere, um, beneficial. Well, you telling them, hey, I want to fix and flip this, but this is what we're going to do. We're going to improve it. We want to give this property back to someone else and in a better situation so that the next family can have the experience that you had, right? That seller had. That can go a long way in you explaining that to that seller than someone who's just said, I'm going to pay you $50,000 more, right? Sometimes people don't care about that. They want someone who's genuinely care and want to improve that community because that community means something to them. Those things can really have a huge impact. And why I think some investors skip this is because this is business, not personal. Well, some of this is personal for some people. And if by skipping this and you're just throwing money at it or just saying, this is my only offer, I'm not going to do it, right? You might find out like, hey, the reason why they need the extra 10,000 is because of something. Well, does the deal still work with extra 10,000? Can we renegotiate? Is there something else? What can we do to let them get the extra 10 or work it in there where the 10 comes to them? Like, can they hold a note then, right? Is if you let me hold it, if the seller's willing to hold a note, I can give them the extra 10,000 because we can string this out a little bit longer. Maybe I don't have to put the down payment that I would have if I went with a DSCR loan or hard money. So now I don't have to use that down payment on getting the loan, and I can use that money to improve the property, which then on the back end, I make an extra 30,000. So paying them the extra 10 makes even more sense, right? So understanding the seller situation is huge when you're negotiating. P's for purchase and price and purchase. These are two different things that I like to look at. Is that P? You can say the price that the seller is wanting, and then what you're going to actually purchase it for, right? Just because the seller says this is the price doesn't mean that's what you're purchasing it at. So you got to have two distinct understandings of that. Just because someone thinks this is what it's worth doesn't mean that's what it's worth actually valued at, right? I think this property is worth 300,000. I only value this property at 200 because of these things, right? I would value it at 400,000 if these things would be taken care of. And that's where the fix and flip opportunities come from, right? Hey, this probably could be valued at 400,000 if we do these things, right? And so that's where the maximum allowable offer comes in, is because if I need to get this property up to 400,000, I need to have a certain target of the ARV. I got to put my rehab, I got closing and holding costs, and then my profit that I want. So all these things have to come into play when I just put in my maximum acceptable offer. Now, the seller is just saying, well, I'm putting at this amount because I know the area is worth 400,000. So I'm going to sell my property at 325 because I know it can be worth 400,000. Well, but you haven't did anything to that property in the last 10 years, and I need to put $100,000 in there. So if I put $100,000 in on top of your 325, I'm at 425. I'm losing money now, right? You're trying to eat in because you know the value of that, the area has went up, so you think the value of your property went up. I'm a big proponent that all property doesn't appreciate. If you bought something and you haven't did anything for that property for the last 5, 7, 10 years, that property is not just genuinely worth more. You even may raise the rent. That doesn't mean that property is worth more. You were just able to take advantage of the rental market to raise rent without having to improve your asset. That doesn't mean now you get to take advantage of when you're trying to sell when you didn't do anything to improve that asset. Now the next person has to improve that asset to maintain that new ARV value, right? So So again, this is where some people might like, well, no, it appreciated if the rents went up, so therefore there's like, well, no, like if I have to replace the water heater, I got to replace the roof now, I got to replace windows to maintain this value. You don't get to take my equity when I got to put all these things in there because you didn't do it, right? So I think a lot of times people skip this because they don't understand, right? They see the 400, they say, oh, they want 325. I just now got to do my rehab, get that cheaper, and still make this work. Like that, it doesn't work that way, right? Now you might be. This is where retail comes in, and you have someone who's like, well, I'll buy it for 325, and I'll put my 100,000 in there. Yeah, it'll be 425, but I'll refinance later on. I'm going to be living here. That's where you can overpay, is when you're a retail person. But when you're an investor, you can't afford to do that. Improvements. This is the moneymaker, right? This is the value add. This is what makes that property we're just talking about worth the more, right? It's the value add. The value add is the magic, right? It's the forced appreciation. If you don't do these things, then you can't do the BRRRR, right? You can't do the fix and flip. You can't do the things where you are creating, value out of nowhere, basically, right? I put a $10,000 bathroom in there. Hopefully that should translate into a, 1,500 and 15,000 and equity, right? The value of the property should go up because I put 10,000 in a very important thing, right? Now you have to understand that there are certain things that people are just not going to pay more for, right? Now, fix and flip, all 7 systems assessed: roof, electrical, HVAC, plumbing, structure, windows, siding, all taken into consideration when you're selling that property, especially if a fix and flip. But if it's a rental, doing all 7 of these things doesn't necessarily mean someone's going to pay you more rent, right? The renter is going to expect you to have a good roof, electrical, HVAC, plumbing, structure, windows, siding. Those are baked in. So a lot of the money that you need to be using when you're doing, a BRRRR is into the actual cosmetics of the property, right? You want that to look better, right? You want to update the kitchen. You want to put new cabinets in. You want to put a new countertop. You want to put new flooring throughout. You want to put carpet in the bedrooms, right? You want to update the bathroom. If you can add a bedroom or a bathroom, that always is the most important thing you can do to add the most value to a property. Now, all the cosmetic things doesn't necessarily mean it's going to actually increase the value of the property, but turning a 2-bedroom 1-bath into a 3-bedroom 1-bath or a 3-bedroom 1.5 bath, like those are what you dramatically change the ARV of that property, because now it was a 2-bedroom 1-bath being assessed against other 2-bedroom 1-baths. Now you turn that 2-bedroom 1-bath into a 3-bedroom 1-bath. Well, now that it has to be assessed around other 3-bedroom 1-baths, so now it's even more valuable because now more people can live there. Revenue, right? The reason why we do all this. Revenue, like it is what established the property's worth, the value, and what it can generate, right? You always want to look at what it's currently doing and what it could be doing. Obviously, finding comps will help with the ARV, right? Finding 3 rental comps, so right? Because that's basically what you're basing this revenue off of. Okay, where does 3 sold comps? Hopefully you can do it within a quarter of a mile. The closer you can get to the property, the better. They will take things up to a mile radius, but if you can keep it closer, you can more, feel more comfortable with your number the closer you are to that property. So if you can't do it in a quarter mile, do a half mile, then 0.75 mile radius, and then actual mile radius. I tend to go through all those stages to get my comps to make sure I'm doing it right. Why some investors do this? Because I think sometimes they just see, and they feel, and they don't get confirmation, right? Checking Zillow, right? You can check Zillow, not saying you can't check it, right? You should check Zillow, but then you should check, get your agent, right? I almost a big proponent that agent is the second person you should talk to after the lender. go get an agent. Agents should be able to pull some stuff of like, hey, here's the comps in the area. These are what recently sold. And then you can check Zillow, you can check apartment.com, you can check all the other places that you can check for rents that will help you completely assess the area. This is more work, and I think this is part of the reason why some people don't want to do it. They have it in their head, passive income, right? And so getting more information, more data so that you can get a better answer, some people don't want to necessarily do, right? Skipping this will cost you money, right? Not truly defining what the ARV is, right? And saying, I want to do this fix and flip. I want to be in this area. I know it's going to be nice. But nothing, you saying, I know things can sell for 250 in this area. And that was a year ago. In the last, 6 months, everything's been selling between 235 and 240. Well, then having 250 is just wrong, right? You're living in a world that doesn't exist anymore. If the market shift and people are not just paying that high of rent now, like, then you just have to look at the numbers and take it for what it's giving you and not for what you think it could be, right? We're just looking at, and this is a conservative way of looking at things, and conservative when investing in real estate is sometimes the best way to go because it helps protect you. And then the upside is even that much greater because you were so conservative. E for exit strategy. So there's 5 exit strategies that we always look at when we're looking at deals. So it's buy and hold, it's the BRRRR, it's fix and flip, it's creative seller financing, and wholesaling. Those are the 5 exits that we're looking at every time we go put all this information in there. This really decides, right? I use the example of one of my clients. I brought him a fix and flip deal, but I ran the numbers for a fix and flip, but I also ran it as a BRRRR. And what ended up happening is the market shifted on us a little bit. And we felt like the best thing to do was to actually hold it. He held it. He refinanced. He was able to pull most of his money out that cover all his initial down payment and majority of the rehab that he put in there. He had to leave some equity in there, which he didn't mind, but then he was able to turn around and rent the property out. And I believe he was getting about basically a 20% cash on cash return based on the money he put in, what was left, and the rent that he was starting to get, right? So having your exit strategy really helps you analyze the deal, right? You really understand what you're trying to accomplish. I think why a lot of people skip this, why investors skip this, is the imposter syndrome, right? How can I estimate what this thing is going to look like at the end? I don't know that, this is my first deal. How can I make that decision right now? I got to go through this. And so they want to skip it, or I'm going to do this buy and hold. All my deals are buy and hold. So there's no reason for me to look at this and see if there's any other better use that I can do with this deal. Even with a buy and hold and saying I'm going to hold it for 30 years, you should still have an exit strategy, right? 30 years from now, when it's paid off, what are you going to do with it at that point, right? Are you going to put it in a trust for your family? How will you take advantage of the equity that you have in there, right? If you're going to refinance, that's part of the exit strategy, right? And if you don't think those things through, you're going to not be ready when these opportunities happen, right? You might say, hey, I'm holding this for the next 10 years because it should be worth this amount. And then this is the return that I should have. Well, what happened if that happens in year 5? Well, no, you should sell it because you've met your number at year 10. That's what you were supposed to be doing. You did that already. Now sell it or refinance it and go get the next deal because that's what you were going to do in year 10, but now you can do it in year 5. That's what having an exit strategy really helps you do. It really helps you organize how you handle your portfolio as time goes on. This can cost you a lot, right? Because again, that same situation, you should have sold in year 5, but then now in year 7, the market shifts again, and now you're way down, and now you get to year 10 and let's say you're 20,000 less than what you were in year 5 because of the shift in the market. that cost you money because you didn't take advantage of it based on the parameters and exit strategy you have in place, right? This is a business. And I feel like what happens with a lot of people is that they don't have this structure. And so they don't know what to do. Like people, when should I sell? Well, this is when you make that decision, right? This is how you set up those parameters. So when certain things hit, you know when to sell it, right? And you know when to go on to the next deal. And so these are some of the things that we have, right? If flip margin is between 12 and 15%, anything below 8, it's not a deal that we want. BRRRR DSCR loan, it has to be 1.15. We typically look for 1.2, and the refinance has to be 75% of loan to value, right? If we put, I'll make it simple math, $100,000, 75% of that is 75,000. Well, we got to make sure everything is under that. So like I got to buy it for 25. I got to put 25 in it. I'm all 50,000 in it. It's valued at 100. Bank is going to give me 75,000. 75,000 wipes out the 50. Now I got a cash flow 25,000, right? That's what you need, right? And some people in this situation will, the owners, well, it can be worth 100. So, and I know if you put 25 in there, it'll be worth 100. So I'm gonna sell it for 75. No one wants that deal, right? No one wants that deal because you're selling it at 75 when it's actually worth 25 because I got to put 25 into it. And then it's worth 100. And now there's room in there. If you just assume that, well, I know you got to put 25 in there and I know the market's worth 100, so therefore my property's worth 75. No, that's not how that works, right? But that's where I feel like that's a lot of mom and pop. That's a lot of uneducated investors. And like, I think there's a lot of investors who have multiple properties, they have a portfolio, and they're still uneducated. Just because you have investments doesn't mean you understand how to be an investor. I have two categories. You can be a real estate investment. You can be a real estate investor, or you can be an investor who invests in real estate, right? You're someone who knows I need to invest in real estate, but doesn't necessarily understand it or runs it as a business, right? There's a lot of people who have 401ks that don't even understand the stock market, right? Are they investors? Are they stock investors? Yes, they're stock investors. Yes, they're an investor who invests in stocks, but are they a stock investor? I would say they're not a stock investor because they don't know what's going on. They just know they put money into this stock and it makes money when the market goes up and they lose money when the market goes down, right? There's a lot of real estate investors that fall under that category. So this is what we do every week. And obviously, if you join the 90-day cohort, we're going to be doing this every week. We're going to be holding people accountable. It starts June 6th. We're going to work with you. We're going to help you set up your business. We're going to hold you accountable, right? And we're going to help you through deals, and we're going to help you submit deals. I think that's a lot of people's issues, is that they might learn how to analyze deals and then they don't do anything with it, right? Sometimes it just could be a matter of sending an email to the listing agent of, hey, I ran some numbers. This is what I think the deal is good at. What do you think? Right? Would your seller consider this? And sometimes it might be working with an actual agent that says, hey, I ran the numbers on this one. I want to go see the property. Let's write an offer on this deal and see what they say. I have a lot of clients that I do that for. Obviously, I have arranged with them because, I charge based on how many offers that I write for someone. The days of agents just writing offers just to write offers are gone. And writing 5-7 offers takes up a lot of time, and you have to charge for your time. So you want to make sure you're being strategic with the offers that you're writing. So the Aspire framework full picture, I'm gonna actually probably use a real deal. And what I mean by that is I was running some offers today, and I found some actual properties that's currently on the market. And I said, you know what, maybe I can just actually run it and see what happens. So we're gonna get into it. So the Aspire calculator. So I'm actually gonna bring that up, and we'll bring it right here. Give me a second. I'm looking. Here we go. So this is going to be the property. It's going to be 5015 North 38th Street. As you can see, it's currently on the market right now. And then we're just going to go through it. Let me bring this over here. So this is the Aspire calculator. So again, I created this for the Aspire Mastermind Group. I wanted to create a calculator that can help, new investors create a system, create a framework so that they can analyze a deal, per time, each time, so that they can create habits and create their own framework in the sense of like their own parameters, what makes a deal for them, right? Each person be like, hey, I need a 15% cash on cash return. Someone else might say I need 25. Someone might say, hey, I just want to make $150 a door. Someone else might say I need to make $500 a door, right? You're going to have different parameters for different deals that you go through and different processes you go through. So what you first do, you come in here, you click this, bring me a deal, and I'll issue a council ruling. So I already did some of the stuff. So I'm going to upload the MLS. So this document. So I'm kind of just going through this process with you guys. I'm just going to upload the MLS. Obviously, like I said, I'm a licensed broker. So I'm taking this information. So I also have the tax information as well. So I know who owns it, when they bought it, how much they bought it for. Right. It looks like this was purchased probably as a bulk purchase. So obviously 570,000 now is being sold for 179. So this could have been a portfolio that could have been bought multiple times, right? So those are things, again, I know this is an LLC, so this is an owner, right? This is not a person, right? So they're looking at this structurally, right? Been on the market for 34 days. So to me, this is overpriced, right? And especially look. So again, being a finance background person and investors, and again, those categories, real estate investor, investor who invests in real estate. Even though this LLC, I'm personally going to say, this investor is trying to take advantage of the market because of things that's probably was in the area, right? So this is someone that might say the 1% rule, right? So let's say that's 700, so 800, 700, that's 1,500. 1% rule means 150,000. So even at 150,000, they're over 29,000. Let's say 30, just make it easy. So they're already, just the 1% rule, they're overpriced $30,000, right? And so there's a reason they feel like they're able to ask the market to give them 30,000 more than the 1% rule, and when rents are way below. So in this area, I'm going to assume this is a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. Again, run the numbers, right? This is it. Like, see, in this area, low ball, I can get 900. High, I can get around almost 1,200, right? They are currently here. So this is probably the amount I can get if it's fixed up. And we'll go through that, right? So one of the other things is, right, I'm gonna do it right here. So let's I know I'm all over the place. Run A and S with this PDF, then go to P. So as that running, I'm gonna go over here and pull. So we got 3. Again, I try to get at least 10. So we're in a quarter-mile radius. Let's go a half mile. See if we can pick up some more properties. So now we got 23, which is exactly what we need, right? So now I got 23 properties that is within the CMA that is within the distance of this property, right? So our subject property is right here at 179. We got stuff on the market still at 165, 164, 150, 139, 134, 107, right? So let me just go to the one that's closest, that a little cheaper. That just came on the market. So now they got competition. They've been on the market 30 some days, and this is on the market cheaper than that one, right? And it's 2-bedroom, 1 bath, and the rents are $950. You see, right there is a prime example. Their rents are $950. Their rents are $700, but they expect to get $14,000 more. As just an investor who looks in at value, this is more reasonable to me, just based on the rents that I'm getting currently, based on this one, right? So this is the prime example I'm talking about with investors who invest in real estate, right? Their feelings are in there, right? I don't think they have a formula where they can justify beyond just saying CMAs, right? They probably went and looked at CMAs and said, this is what it's worth. Because I don't think they can honestly run the numbers and tell me that it's worth 179. Again, they could, but they would have to show me, right? Because looks what's been selling, right? These are all the things that have been selling. All these things are below. This is at 165. They were at 850, 175. So, and they had it originally at 189, and now they're at 39. And now they sold it for 165. So, and that was that was last year this time. So has the market changed? Yeah, it could have changed more, but who knows, right? They sold this at 192, and this was earlier this year. Well, okay, it was on the market for 54. So like, what was on here? What was going on? They could have overbought this, right? Someone could have overpaid for this. But these are things you want to take into place. All right, so we analyzed that one. It's breaking it down, right? And I love this. It tells the year built average, size, the bed count, bath count, what is currently renting, what is gross rent. Then it gives them asset observations, right? It's going to let us know some things. They're already saying what's the highest and best use, right? This is probably a long-term hold. Probably great for a house hacking opportunity, right? Then the seller situation, right? They're going to say it's on 34 days. The owner equities is LLC. And then we don't know these other things, so we can't really truly understand the seller situation until we go in this out. So we're at a preliminary status right now. So it kind of took some of the purchase price. I want it to take, so I'm going to put in the CMA. I already ran this earlier. So rerun P along with this information from the PDF, then move to I. So it's gonna take the information that initially had, right? It's the 179,000. That's their price. But now I'm giving them this information, right? Everything wasn't hunky dory, right? So where's ours at? So we have it at 1558. So let's just go to the ones that sold for enough. So they got 300 more square feet, right? They have 1,200 more square feet. So like there are reasons why these sold way more. So like to sit here and say like this is gonna, this is our ARV, like that's incorrect, right? That's not the case. It's entirely way less, right? And then it's gonna say, hey, we have these sales, we have average, high outliners is 304, luxury quality update. This is typically where they at 190. Right? It's aggressive. It's at 179 based on the rents, right? It's I think great gross rent margin is 10%, right? They're asking a lot based off the amount that you can make off this property. Like that's just a lot. You want this number lower. Again, retail investor oriented, right? They're going after someone who might, house hacking, right? And or someone who wants to actually live in it and then rent them out, but not necessarily is trying to scale their real estate investment. They might just be someone who wants to own a property and know that owning a duplex will actually allow them to benefit from, buying a duplex instead of buying a single family. Again, strongly renovated, highest might be 205. So again, they're eating into stuff like, because I mean, based on what it is, like, let's just say I have to put 50,000 in it. Well, they're selling it at 174, 50,000, I'm at 225. That's, we're way above that. So then that means I have to purchase it lower. So, and now it's giving us, all right, you need to probably purchase around 125, 140, 120, all those things, right? So it's, flip is not supported. Wholesaling, we need to get it under, but it's already on the market. So that's tend to be out. Well, if they want the 175, then it's like, okay, what parameters can we set up that makes that 175 feasible? Like this 20% down, 7.5, right? We can tell it other ways. Like I had a client who bought a duplex. He only had to put 5% down, but he also got a down payment grant where he didn't have to come to closing with any money. So like there's other opportunities that we could put in here to do that as well. I'm going to, let's set the rehab budget at moderate rehab and go on the higher end of 45,000 estimated cost, and then add a 10% contingency on top of that. So now we're going to do I. So now we're told okay, we're going to have to fix it up. Total rehab is going to be 49.5 because we put a contingency of 4,500 on top of the 45,000. We're hoping that we can take care of all these things under that budget. Purchase price is 179, right? Closing cost 54. And now we have the rehab contingency at 49,000. Initial carry reserves is 7,500. Now we're all in 242, right? We already said that the max is probably 205. So we're already at 242. It doesn't make sense, right? That, again, based on who might buy this property, it doesn't make sense for an investor who looks in at the numbers to purchase this property. Who's going to purchase this property at this number is going to be a retail person who can take advantage, of living there and pay a little bit more because they can get cheaper money. So maybe they can, pay a little bit more because they have the cheaper money and, having someone offset it, right? They're not going to necessarily, quote unquote, cash flow, but their bills are going to be less. Their expenses are going to be less because someone else is helping them pay. Moving right along here. So now we're stress test, we're already kind of losing based off of that and then needing to try to refinance out of it. So, current gross rent is that. So we're going to do R, and I have the rental report. Sometimes it goes beyond, and I wanted to go to E and stop. So right now, see, average rent, is 1,100. Median can be 12. So it's probably going to pick a number in between there, right? So way below what we can get, right? But that doesn't mean because I get to bump it up, like you get to take advantage of that, right? You're like, well, I'm at 795. I've been holding it here because I had good tenants. I didn't want to raise the rent, but I know I could get 900. So you have to give me some of that value because I didn't raise the rent, but I know it can be there. That does not make any sense, right? No, I'm not going to give you part of that value because you didn't do the work. You didn't kick those tenants out to rate, and to improve the asset and then raise the rent. You just kept them in there because they were paying you good rent at the amount that you were because of the loan you had or whatever. And this was cash flowing for you. So this made sense. You can't now say, I want to take advantage of the property if it was actually worth this, if I put the money in there, and you didn't. So I think that's why a lot of properties sit on the market, is because you got a lot of people who, are investors who invest in real estate and they don't really truly understand, and they're treating like a mom and pop hobby, right? A real business person would not treat it as such. They would understand, like, hey, I didn't invest in it. I got the money that I need to get back. I'm not going to be greedy because I didn't put the money in there. If I want that value, I need to go and put that money in there and raise the rents and then get that return that I'm looking for. Don't skip the steps. So they're running all this stuff background, right? Taxes, insurance, vacancy, repairs, capex, management, all those things come into play, right? And now you have to take those things in consideration. So they are gonna see, now we got an annual income of 27,000. NOI is around 14, 16, right? Before we had 17 as just a gross rent in itself, right? So now you are taking that home. So the before it was 17,000, then minus the expenses. Right now it's minus all the expenses. Now we're leaving with 16,000. Right. So that's a different type of property, right? Where they are now, they bring in 17,000 before the expenses. Now with the upkeep and everything else, now they're going to take home 16,000. That's entirely different. Even now a DSCR loan is, 0.95, one way below. Cash on cash is low. Refinance safety is weak. So it just doesn't make sense, right? The only thing you have to buy and hold, and as time goes, you offset yourself. Again, this is probably best for a house hack. So I'm gonna issue final ruling, and then we're gonna wrap it up. I'm a little bit over. So issue final ruling. Asking price 179, rehab is 49, closing 12, estimated totals 242. Estimated DSCR loan is 1.15. DS might go with it, but you're not gonna really get any extra cash. You're gonna definitely be leaving money in there. So to make this deal work, you got to offer around 125. That's 50,000 less. The high end you can pay 145, but I would say start at 125. Is the sand, the council finds the current acquisition price leaves insufficient margin. In reserve assumptions, the council finds the projected exceeds all material compression supporting neighborhood valuation, right? It's already at the highest amount. It just doesn't make sense. There's things you got to do. Again, why I love this calculator, it tells you, okay, can you acquire this for less than 140? So again, I would start at 125 and make your way up. This is, they said this is the area you want to kind of work in. But again, this is why I love the calculator. It kind of gives you 6 things you need to go through. You can say, hey, you can still go analyze it, see if you can get it 130, do it still in full inspection, verify the roof, underwrite rents at 1,100 that you can actually prove. Avoid flip, whatever. Explore seller financing. Hey, if you really want the 175, can we work a deal? How much equity do you have in there that we can do something, and then I can wipe out, the remaining balance of what you owe? Can I do a subject to? Is there something in there that I can get you closer to the amount you want, where you allow me to leverage, the debt, right? So that's how you analyze the deal in real life, right? So we did that using the calculator, going from framework to actual calculator, right? This is not a spreadsheet. It was actually talking you through it, right? Actually working through the deal, not just being some spreadsheet you put numbers in, but actually, the deal should tell a story, right? And if the deal is not telling you a story, then you're just looking at numbers. Mastermind group, like I said, we meet monthly, second Wednesday of every month. Obviously, we're trying to build a community here. We weekly live deal analysis. If you're not running deals every day, you struggle, but at least we try to force you to do it on this day, to force you to start analyzing deals. You got to get around other people, right? Have a community, be around these individuals that are doing this day in, day out, so that you can start doing it yourself, right? we try to teach the Aspire framework because most people, they're just plugging numbers in and then they're hoping a certain number will outcome, and that's what they're hoping, right? And then deal flow. We're trying to increase your deal flow, right? Doing more, analyzing more. Don't fixate in one community right now. You just need to analyze deals. And I've been telling people, because I support southeastern Wisconsin, so everywhere, surrounding communities in Milwaukee County, all the way down to Racine and Kenosha County. I would say I even go down to the borderline of Illinois and Wisconsin. Also being part of the Aspire Mastermind, you get access to me and the Aspire team. There's a bunch of individuals on our team who's doing this every day, who's in the business, who's doing fix and flips, who's, buying, got a portfolio of 60 plus units. They're buying duplexes right now. So we got people on our team who's actually real estate investors, right? They're not just investors who invest in real estate. They're actual real estate investors. And then this is also a bridge, right? The cohort, this is get you to the RTS where, you're really into it. You really want to pay for an outcome, we charge $2,500, but you're getting $7,400 in deals, and you're getting someone actually holding you accountable to everything. Again, you can join the mastermind group. The first meeting is free, but anything after that, you got to join. It's $29. I feel like it's worth it. If you just do that, you be part of the community. You can always come to our meetings. You can work deals. Again, before this live lunch and learn, there is a deal analysis within school that you can sign up for and actually put in live deals and get live deal analysis at that time. So take advantage of that. Tomorrow, Wednesday at 7 p.m., I have my live webinar. I love running that. That basically gets you into, I'm actually going into things, creating more of the framework, right? Aspire is just within the framework, right? We're also trying to build the investment business around that framework. So that's what the webinar is for, is helping you understand the systems around the Aspire framework, right? Analyzing deals is just one part of the investment business strategy. And so what we're going to be talking about tomorrow is the backyard rep. You were never an imposter. You were just early, right? A lot of people get caught up because they feel like they're an imposter. They don't know what they're doing. And as long as you start doing the reps, yes, there's always going to be that point where you were their imposter, but you were just early, right? I'm going to make an analogy of the kid in the background shooting the game-winning shot, right? There technically was an imposter because they said 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, game winner. I won the NBA championship. You're 11. You're an imposter, right? No, they were just early. They were training for when they do go to the NBA. And now, LeBron James, all those individuals, they probably sometime were pretending in their backyard to be that person, right? And this is what the RTS is offering, right? We're going to frame it and help you better understand it. Again, sign up for our Aspire 90-day program starting June 6th. We're going to be live in Next Home My Way headquarters. We'll also be having it online, but we are going to start, 90-day program, $500 to join. If you want to do the RTS cohort, that's going to be $2,500. You do have different payment structures. Again, reach out if you have any other questions. Ready to execute, right? If the cohort fills up, you missed out on an opportunity. We only have 12 spots, 90 days, one outcome. And that's getting you under contract and get you a closed deal. Like, that's the whole point, is get this going, get you underway, get it all started. Again, I want to thank Next Home My Way for allowing me to hold this Lunch and Learn live webinar in their headquarters, in their social media lab. It's a great opportunity. So if you're any agents out there that's looking for a brokerage that's offering an opportunity to build your brand, Next Home My Way is a great place. We have the resources, we have the tools, the equipment to promote yourself, to build that brand that makes you stand out from your peers so that you can build your business. So Big shout out to Next Home My Way. Again, thank you, Carlos, Angel, and Jose for this opportunity. Raise the Standard is my team at Next Home My Way. Couple things about us is that we try to raise the standard on each deal that we do. So if the deal's not good for our client, their family, us, and the community, we don't want to be a part of it. And every day we're trying to be better by being better. Always 1% better, no matter what. And then our last one is, what's your legacy? What are you doing this for? Why are you wanting to build this real estate portfolio? Why are you trying to build generational wealth? Hopefully you want to leave a better legacy for everyone. And then again, join Aspire Mastermind Group. First visit is free. You can come to our meetings second Wednesday of every month. This one will be June, I believe, 10th is our next meeting. Please feel free to reach out. Find us on Facebook. That's going to be up and running. And you can join and meet some other investors that's in the area that's trying to build their real estate portfolio as well. And you might find your future partner. Thank you again for joining me. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to reach out to me, message me, DM me, and thank you so much. I'm Charles Clark, your real estate investment broker, here with another bright idea.